Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. Get ready for an interview with one of Australia's leading online businesswomen. Kate Toon is a multi-award-winning digital marketing entrepreneur, most recently winning the 2022 Australian Small Business Influential Woman Award. Kate is an event speaker, podcaster, author, media spokesperson, digital marketing expert, copywriting educator, and coach. And as she likes to describe herself, she is basically a misfit entrepreneur. And as I've found, she's also a bloody great human. However, this isn't a business podcast, so we don't really get into the business side of things. This podcast is all about women redefining what the middle of life means for them. So in today's episode, we talk about her life as a midlife woman, a mother, and a partner. Kate and I have a great chat about how much she has evolved over the last decade and what she'd love for the future to hold for her. This chat actually felt like sitting down with an old friend, and it was so much fun to have. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. And I'd really love to thank Kate for being so incredibly honest and vulnerable with sharing the good, the bad, and the not so pretty parts of her life. If you'd like to connect with Kate, you'll find all of her links in the show notes. Now on with the show. Welcome, Kate, to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled that you were able to join us today, and I'd love to hear more about your story. So before we begin, unless you're in the world of business, you probably may not have heard of Kate because Kate is well known within that world, but we're talking to Kate today as a midlife woman and how she's navigating through this stage of her life. So welcome.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's go back to the younger Kate. I'd love to hear what younger Kate was like when she was in her probably late teens and early 20s. What sort of things were you dreaming about, and what were your ambitions?
Gosh, I don't think I had many ambitions, I must admit. I think I had a vague yen to be a magazine writer. That's kind of what I wanted when I left school. I was voted person most likely to write for Smash Hits, which was a popular pop magazine in the UK. So I think writing has always been part of my goal. And I used to do gig reviews. And when I went to university, I worked on the newspaper. And then obviously I came out of university and didn't do that at all because I had huge debt from student loans and things. So I got a proper job. So I think that was it. I was always very driven about, having a boyfriend, very focused on having a boyfriend. God, the amount of time I wasted on that. So I wasn't like a particularly I look at some women today, younger women today, and they're so driven and ambitious and confident. Definitely wasn't me. No way at all. Kind of quite shy and retiring, nervous Nelly, wanting to be in magazines, but probably not brave enough to do it. So yeah, I sound like quite mean to myself, but I wasn't one of these sort of thrusting, fabulous entrepreneur types in my 20s or my 30s, to be honest.
So what did you study at university? Was it writing along those lines, or was it something in business?
English, history, and philosophy. So
Wow.
I can tell you every Roman emperor and do a good breakdown of a John Donne romantic poem, but nothing useful or practical.
So nothing that you studied back in your university days has really got you to where you are today?
I don't know. I mean, I like to be cynical about it. It was definitely not vocational, but I think having a love of language and an understanding of that is great. And, having historical context in life in general, knowing that all of this has happened before, knowing why things have evolved the way they have, I think is really illuminating and helps you not panic as much when we have things like COVID. So I think they've influenced my life and therefore my career, but they weren't vocational necessarily.
Isn't it interesting when you were talking about your younger self and you're saying, I'm sounding quite mean. What stage of life did you all of a sudden realize that you didn't have to be like that you could be more than what you thought you were back in your younger years?
So I think probably last week, maybe. I would honestly say that it's only really been the last couple of years where I felt a bit more confident in myself, who I am I enough, all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely a work in progress. I'm not there by any means at all. So yeah, I'm still on that journey, I think.
It's constantly evolving, isn't it? And I think the older you get, probably the more you give less concerns about what others think, and that's freeing in a way.
It
So,
is.
Kate, did you study when you were in Australia, or did you come to Australia later in life? What's your story behind when you came here, and the why?
Yeah, so I grew up in the UK, obviously, and as you can tell from the accent, and I came over here about 24, 25 as a backpacker. I had no money. I ran out of money within 2 weeks of arriving in Australia, and so I got a job, and it just so happened to be a pretty amazing job. I was head of digital at Ogilvy, which was an ad agency, and they were just launching into internet stuff. And because I'd done it in the UK was a bit further ahead. I kind of came here and I was like, really great, So I started off quite a senior role. And then gradually over the next 3 years, as they realized I had no idea what I was talking about, got gradually demoted, which was hilarious. But yeah, that's how I came here. It wasn't necessarily intention to stay, but then I got sponsored and was able to stay. And yeah, so that was how I got to Australia.
Wow, and was that the start of your business world and your online business that you were starting to create from that point?
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. So, I only started my online business when I was about 35, and it wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. So, I'd been told that we wouldn't be able to have kids, me and my husband, but then we miraculously got pregnant, which was amazing. And I had a very full-on job in an ad agency at that point, like kind of pretty much general manager of a big department. I knew that if I was to have a kid, I'd be one of the parents, no judgment, but that was going to have to put their kid in childcare at like 6 weeks and whatever. And I just didn't want to do that because I wanted to have a kid for so long. I was like, oh, I'm going to be all in. So I left my job at 5 months pregnant. I had no maternity leave because I was on a contract, and I just literally had to make money. Because my partner had no money. He had just started a French school. He had one student, and I was the breadwinner. So at 5 months pregnant, I just had to do something to try and bring in money, and that's how my business started. Not kind of any glorious plan, no savings in the bank, no decision. I definitely jumped. I wasn't pushed, but I jumped into the unknown.
Yeah, right. That's a really interesting way to start your business. And from that point, did you believe that you had the skills that you could grow it into something? Like, did you have a plan? Did you think that, right, I'm going to be able to create something really amazing?
No, it was totally
Wow.
hand to mouth. Totally hand to mouth. I mean, let's be honest, the first year having a brand new baby and being sleep deprived and having like an hour to work, it was just desperate. Do you know what I mean? There's no glamour there. It's not like people are like, oh, it was such a good time, I really found myself. No, it was pretty miserable, So no, I didn't have a plan. And I've never had a plan, and I still don't have a plan now. I never had a business plan. I don't set goals. I've never had a business coach, never had a mentor, never joined a mastermind. I just kind of go day to day and kind of like I probably should think more of myself, but I just trust that I'll be okay. It all works out. Bad bits, good bits, great launches, fails. So no, never a plan. It's all just been a natural evolution. I love to take, the untrodden path. People are like, don't look at shiny objects. I love shiny objects. Most of my business is built on shiny objects. So yeah, just kind of bumbling along has been my plan.
That's quite phenomenal, because I'm only in the early stages of my business and have had some mentoring, and I'm actually in a mastermind myself right now. And I'm going, I've got so many shiny objects. I don't think I would start something if someone didn't say, right, spend, not tell me what to do, but encourage me perhaps to start on that. So listening to you being able to do that and still create something quite phenomenal is amazing, because it can be done, I suppose, for different, depends on your personality type, perhaps.
It really does. And the problem I have, Jo, is I'm not very good at being told what to do.
Yeah.
In fact, if you tell me what to do, I'll actually visibly recoil, and so, but even I get funny about me telling me what to do. So if I do set a goal, I remember like about 4 years ago, I set a goal of getting 5,000 followers on Instagram. Stupid goal, don't know why I did it. And then I did everything but, I ranked number 1 on Google for hundreds of terms. I launched an email list, I launched a course, and I didn't achieve that goal, because as soon as I'd set it as a goal, I kind of lost interest in it. And so I do think it's important to look at yourself and think about how coachable you are. I've been working with a book coach for a few weeks on my pitch, and I really found the experience torturous. Everything she asked me to do, I kind of was like, why do I do that? God, I was a nightmare. I had to send her an email apologizing for being an awful coachee, because I just have this horrible, it's actually horrible, Joe, but it's positive. It's obviously been positive, but I always kind of think I know best, and I don't, but in a way I do, because I'm me. And even if I think I know best and try something and it fails, at least I 100% own it. Whereas I feel if someone tells me to do something and it goes well, then it's their win. It's not my win. And if someone tells me to do something and it fails, well, then it's my fault, because I shouldn't have done what they told me to do. So I just want to own my own decisions. And I also am a bit funny that I don't want anyone else to take credit for my adventure. And some coaches are a bit like, oh, look at my person, I helped to earn 7 figures. And you're like, did you though? You talked to her for like an hour a week. She did the work. You did like 1%. She did 99. And there you are, kind of claiming her as your win. She's her own win. So I get funny about that.
I can definitely see that side of it as well. And were you like this, given what you're like now as an adult, were you like this when you were a child with your parents, with your teachers, or is this something that's come across? Okay.
No, I was very biddable. I was a very biddable, obedient child, always trying to please my parents, and still am. I still want to be loved by everybody. It's funny, I want to be loved, but I do unlovable things. At school, I think I started to arc up a bit. Arc up? Do we use that expression in Australia? It's very English.
We do.
I started to be a bit mouthy. Started to be a bit mouthy about around 15, 16. My mum was called in because I was very sarcastic and to teachers and very back chatty. But in a kind of fairly obedient way. It wasn't like I was, smoking crack in the playground. I was just a bit sarcastic. So I've always been a bit sarcastic, I think, and a bit counter. I call myself, I wrote a book called The Misfit Entrepreneur, and I'm like, oh, I'm such the odd one out, but I like being the odd one out. Do you know what I mean? I love that role. I'd rather be the odd one out than be fully accepted. And yet at the same time, I want to be accepted. It's a contradiction, Joe.
Oh, what a life you lead, Miss Kate. That's amazing.
I need this is a psychology session. Should I just lie on my couch and you can stroke my hair?
Make yourself comfortable, dear. Yeah. Now, growing a business can take an awful lot of time and headspace. So how have you been able to navigate all of that whilst you had a young child? You've got to manage, there's so many components. So how have you managed it?
It's funny, Joe, that's the topic of my new book. So look, at times well, at times badly. I don't believe in balance. I believe that sometimes you're a good parent, sometimes you're a good partner, sometimes you're a good business person, and they're very rarely all at the same time. I think I'm very good at being productive, and I'm very good at setting to-do lists and motivating myself. I take the kind of Stephen King approach of I sit at my desk for 6 hours a day, regardless, and I often find inspiration in action. So I don't wait to be inspired or motivated. I do the thing until the kind of, the motion of doing it propels myself. I think I made choices early on that made it easier to be a parent. So I moved out of Sydney. We moved to the Central Coast, which meant there was no commute. I work from home in my back garden. That gives me a lot more time. The school is around the corner. So I made decisions that made it easier. I took financial pressure off myself by moving out of a very expensive area, so I didn't have to make as much money. So I made a few smart decisions, not very consciously, but looking back, it was quite clever, that have allowed me to maybe only work 20-ish hours a week. But also, I think I'm infinitely, I'm eager, but I'm patient. Like, I think a lot of people mess things up for themselves by going, I want all of this and I want it now. Like, I want to launch a membership and I want to have 200 members. Great, you can have that. It may take you 3 years. Are you willing to wait 3 years? And most people are like, what? No, I am willing to wait. Everything I've done has been very slow and iterative. Now it looks like I have this vast empire, but everything was built one at a time, slowly adding, spinning one more plate. So patience, I think, has been the key to me being able to build a successful business. I'm 15 years into this, nearly 14. My son's nearly 14. So, that's a long time. It's a long time, and you can't compare me to someone who's been doing it for 3 years. After 3 years, I still barely knew what I was doing, so it's just time and patience and persistence, I think, that have been the key.
Yeah. So would you see yourself as being quite intuitive? A lot of the decisions that you've made business-wise and then personal life, by the sounds of you moving, was that based on a strong feeling that you had? So you acted upon that because you said you like to do things quickly. So would you say you are intuitive and you felt that this was right and so forth, you'd go for it?
It's funny. No one's ever asked me that. And I've never really thought of it in those terms. I guess I am. I don't, I try these days to be much more, to think about why I think about what I think about. Does that make sense? To separate the me, the myself, and the I, to separate the thought, the feeling from the thought, and the thought from the action. But in those days, I didn't. I just was blundering around. But I guess in a way, you're right. I was being led by something, and it was probably my intuition, but I've just never framed it in that way. So thank you, Joan. That's made me think.
You're very welcome. No, that all comes with the cost at the end of the session. So over the past couple of years, you've started to reinvent yourself personally and explore new ways of being, new habits around the areas of wellness. What was the actual catalyst for some of those changes? And if you can tell other people who don't know of you what those changes have been.
Yeah, so I did work very hard. I am a hard worker. I'm one of these people who measures themselves by their productivity, which is not great. We all pick something, how well off you are, how much love you have, whatever. I've always been like, roll my sleeves up, get the work done. And as long as I've done that, then that's all you can ask. So I worked very, very hard, probably too hard. My partner and I kind of started to drift apart a little bit. So I found a lot of solace in work, because in work I felt like I was in control. Got a bit lonely in my relationship, if I'm honest, and so again in work I found a lot of comfort and solidarity. So I kind of gave everything to work. I put on about 35 kilos, got quite overweight, and that started to cause some real health issues, fatty liver and things like that. And I just reached a real nadir, if I'm honest, a real low. And I don't know what the instigus was to kind of get out of it, but I just wanted to take action. So I think it was a real acceptance. This is quite personal, but I had a real moment of accepting that my marriage wasn't going to be what I wanted it to be. So I was going to just do my own thing. I wasn't ready to separate or anything, but I was like, no one's coming to save me. This isn't going to be the love of the romantic journey I thought it was going to be. I better get on with my life and make it what it needs to be. So I started to put myself out to speak at conferences and do things, even though I was really overweight, didn't like the way I looked, and then I did start to lose weight. It took me 2 years to lose the weight. And then since then, I've also given up alcohol. Because alcohol had become a bit of a crutch. A glass of wine turned into 2 to 3, and it becomes once a week, and then it becomes every night, and it becomes the norm. And there's a whole mummy culture that it's okay, feel sad, have a wine, feel happy, have a wine. So I managed to kind of break that. It's taken a couple of years to go alcohol free, but I've been alcohol free now for about 7-8 months, consistently. And that's been amazing. That's been the biggest change, because finally I can't escape my feelings ever. Yeah. And so you have to deal with them, which is horrible. But you do, and you come out the other side and you're fine. So yeah, that's very personal stuff. But yeah, that's my personal adventure to health. And now I'm going to the gym 4 days a week. I'm one of those revolting people, Joe. When people say, oh yeah, I get up at 5:30, I go for a walk on the beach, and I go to the gym, and then I have a smoothie. I am that person.
What have you become, Kate? And who is this new?
I disgust myself, but I love it. Funny, and I'm happier. I have a consistent level of contentment that I've never had before. I'm not on a roller coaster, and I'm just not as reactive to things that happen in my life or my business. Things don't cut as deep. I had a copycat the other day. I did this beautiful brochure for a retreat, and I thought, I'm going to do it differently. Everyone else does a sales page. I'm going to do a glossy travel brochure. Spent ages on it. It was beautiful. Sent it out, sold it out. And then 2 weeks later, I saw someone else had literally done a brochure exactly like mine. Same terms and conditions, same FAQ, same aesthetic. You could probably look at it and go, it's a bit different, but you could, and I know they're on my list, and I saw it and I thought, oh, really? And then I thought, oh, who cares? And it lasted for like maybe half a minute. Whereas that would have been a week, of misery before. I'd have been like, why did they do it? Shall I message them? Shall I say something? Shall I call them out online? Shall I do a put their page in there? Why did they? But I just thought, I don't care. Mine sold out. Good on you. Have a go. Whatever. So that is, I think a lot of that is to do with giving up booze and being a bit more present and just realizing, none of it really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. So the giving up of the booze, was that something that was difficult to do, or was it something that you
yeah,
right,
massively difficult. I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say I was a rampant raging alcoholic. I wasn't drinking vodka out of a brown paper bag at 9 a.m. But it wasn't the quantity. I wasn't really a binge drinker. It was the habitual nature of it.
Yeah.
Something that you do every day and you don't question why you do it is worrying. So yes, it was hard because it would become a habit, and habits are hard to break. And also the whole world seems to be drinking. And when you go against that, you feel other. And while I said I like to feel other, sometimes I want to feel part of the gang. So, you go out for a meal and you're not drinking and everyone else is. It's like, oh, do I join in, But now you just need to do it enough that it becomes the norm. And now no one would probably know whether I'm drinking or not. So no one actually gives a crap. No one's asking what's in your glass. If you make a thing of it, it makes other people feel uncomfortable because they feel they have to question their choices. But it's got nothing to do with you. It's me, So it was definitely challenging. So I taken it, as I said, a couple of years. I did a lot of 30-day challenges. I did 100-day challenges. And now I'm on 7-8 months. And I'm not saying I'll never drink again. Who knows? But I definitely don't want to get back into that habitual, have a drink because it's Tuesday, kind of approach.
Yeah. And that's drinking alcohol for our age group is huge.
So bad, man.
It is. And the effects that it has on the woman's body, particularly during the perimenopause or menopause years, is massive. So
and yet we're not told this. It's not, the links to breast cancer and all of that. I could go on and on about it. People don't want to hear it because if they knew the truth of how bad it is, then no one would ever drink again. And we're like, we need some pleasures, we need some vices. Surely we're allowed a glass of wine, for the love of God. And it's very challenging. So I've been through all those arguments.
Yeah. And how is that your change in how you're approaching life now? Because obviously you were saying you're happy, you're more relaxed, things aren't upsetting you as much. How has that impacted your family, your relationship with your son, your partner, your friends, family? What have they noticed?
Well, I think, I'm just generally more positive, so not being grouchy. My son, obviously, bless him, love him. He knows he's 13, so I talked to him about it. But he's like, I don't really see much difference, Mum. But that's only because I was good at hiding. I wouldn't have a glass of wine until he got to bed and stuff like that. I actually live with my ex. And I've lived with him for 4 years. So we separated 4 years ago. And we're very, most people couldn't do that. But we're very harmonious. I have a great relationship with my new partner. I have a lot more energy. So, and I think I'm just a lot more present. Like I'm not great at having lots of friends, but I've become a better friend to the friends I have. I've become a better sister. I listen more. I remember more. Like I used to find it so hard to remember the name of people's kids and it was their birthday, or that someone had gone and had an appointment last week. And I really ought to remember to check in and see if they're okay and close that loop and just be that person that actually remembers to ask you, are you okay? What did you have for breakfast? I feel like I'm better at that. It's still not perfect, but I'm getting better at that. Just feel more present, in my actual life. I'm not constantly escaping it. I don't know how I actually found time to drink, to be honest, because now I feel like I have no time at all in a good way, but I just don't know how I found so much time to sit around drinking wine, It's crazy.
And did that affect your, because I know for myself, if I have a couple of drinks, it affects my body so much more now. I'll wake up, heart will be racing, I feel lousy, and I haven't had much compared to, what I would have had in my younger years. So have you noticed those sort of changes as well? And that would obviously, if you have, made a difference.
Oh, I mean, I can't tell you, Joe, that I suffered from terrible anxiety and have suffered from anxiety and depression all my life, and being on medication at various times. And I used to think, why am I waking up at 3 o'clock and having this racing heart and worrying about everything in the world? Like, what is that? That's so weird. Why is it? Maybe I'll stop having coffee. Maybe, and it's just the one thing that obviously causes it is booze. Everyone who drinks No matter how much you drink, there's something to do with the way your body processes it.
Yes.
But after about 5 or 6 hours after you've gone to bed, it gets to the liver bit, and your body releases cortisol to try and process the alcohol through your system, because it's poison. So your body's fighting that poison. And that happens at around 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's when your body gets to that bit. That I didn't want to admit that. So, and then you're having lack of sleep. And sleep, as we know, is key to everything in aging and well-being and everything, So it's all linked. And I would literally say I cannot even engender the feelings of anxiety that I used to live with every day. I used to wake up every day feeling like something's going to happen, And I cannot even make myself feel like that anymore. Even if I try to worry about something, I just can't get to that level anymore. It's just gone. So for me, it's been life-changing. I sound really preachy. I hope it's not coming across as that. This is my journey, and I've been on the other side of this for a long time going, oh, shut up, let me have my wine. So I don't want to come across as preachy, but it's been life-changing for me. And yet still, Joe, I still romanticize alcohol and go, love a glass of Pinot Grigio. Oh, that looks so good. Even though I know rationally it adds no value to my life. It's a 20-minute dopamine high, and then I feel crap and I have to have more and more. And I know all of this, but I still want it. So I'm still working on it,
Well, it is a work in progress, and you're certainly not sounding preaching. You're saying how it is for you, and it's really, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing also. It is so other women who may be experiencing what you're going through might go, oh, maybe I should just try that. Yeah, and it's lovely to hear that you've been on both sides and the difference it's made for your health and wellness. So you've stopped your alcohol. You're going to the gym. You're feeling better within yourself. What else is on your wellness vision that you're really wanting to focus on next? Is there something else you want to add to your menu?
Yes, absolutely. It's all around mental health and mindset. So I think I've done a lot to improve my physical health. What I eat, how I sleep, exercise. But still, I think I need to do more work on. I'm a bit of a doom monkey. As I said, I've got obviously a depressive side to me. I'm a bit bleak, a bit sarcastic. You can hear the words coming through of who I am. The unlovable thing. So I think that's the next stage for me. I use meditation now. I'm trying to do a bit of a gratitude journal. I'm not great at it, and obviously because I'm somebody that praises streaks and productivity, I need to get over the fact that if I miss a day of my gratitude journal, it doesn't mean I throw that notepad away and have to start again. I can pick it up again. That's a big thing to forgive yourself for. So that's my final bit, like just working on the mind and trying to separate that think, feel, act cycle. Just because I think a thought doesn't mean I have to feel a certain way and I don't have to act upon it. And trying to catch myself. I used to say this, Joan, I used to say there's like 5 stages or something. Some people catch themselves after an emotional outburst or a bad feeling a couple of weeks later and they go, God, that was weird. Some people catch themselves immediately afterwards and go, that was weird. Some people catch themselves in the moment and go, stop it. What am I doing? Some people notice it coming up, catch themselves just before. I want to get to the stage where like I can feel it coming. And I've noticed that this week. I'm in the process of pitching my book. It's very emotional and vulnerable. It's been rejected by one publisher. That's making me have questions about my ego and can I write? And I'm really trying to be gentle with myself, because if I don't recognize it now, in a week I'll be in a heap. When all 4 reject me, which they may not, but they may do, I need to be prepared for that and watch my emotions and feelings. And so I'm trying to, that's my main thing, sort my brain out.
Oh, awareness is key. That's the start of everything, though. And the fact that you are starting to become far more aware of what your thoughts are and the impact that they can have on you, that is huge. So I wish you well on that next part of your wellness journey, because that is something that is always going to be ongoing.
Yes, absolutely. And some days you have good days and bad days, and it's forgiving yourself for that as well. But that's my main goal now. I'm trying to find different methods. Gratitude journals working quite well for me at the moment, and also writing out my woes, because literally I seem to have the same 3 woes every day. It doesn't change, and then you kind of go, it's quite boring worrying about the same thing again and again and again. I might stop. Maybe I'll just stop worrying about that.
I hear you. Sometimes there is that loop that keeps on going, and then you've got to work out, where has that come from? And then just try to dig a little bit deeper, because it has to be, it's coming from somewhere. So once you deal with where it's come from initially, then you can start that process of healing and fixing. So, Kate, over the years, we're only starting to talk more openly now as women, maybe because we've got to this age, but I think the conversation is just happening more and more is what I'm noticing, because there's more platforms to do so. So the whole idea of the perimenopausal years and menopausal years and how it's affecting women is something that I think should be shared, needs to be shared. How have you found the transition? Are you through the transition? Are you going through a transition time now?
I mean, as you will know, Jo, it's really hard to tell. Like I've been to the doctors and said, am I? And they're like, we won't really know until you're not. In a way, we can do blood tests, we can do this, that, and the other, but it's quite hard to identify that perimenopause period and the menopause. And also, so many of the symptoms are just part of a woman's life: feeling tired all the time, lack of energy, hair coming out of strange places, periods stopping and starting. That's been my whole life, right? So am I more tired? Is this a different kind of tired? Am I putting on weight here and there because I'm eating Mars bars? So it's quite hard as women, because our hormones are affecting us all the time, to kind of go, this is perimenopause and this isn't. So I don't know, Jo. And I'm in the menopause groups, I'm listening to the podcasts, and it's kind of quite scary. You read some things that are happening to women and it's quite frightening. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrifying. And I'm obviously quite keen for it all to be over. I'm sick of periods. How annoying are periods? I'm keen for it all to be over, but also, I don't know. I'm quite daunted by it. And so I appreciate the conversations, because I don't want to be as scared of it as I am. Like that I'm gonna in 2 years' time, suddenly I'm gonna grow a beard and put 40 kilos on. Do you know what I mean? If I choose to do that. Yeah, there are some awful stories. But also, you do also wonder what other lifestyle choices those people are making. Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you doing these things? And is that compounding it? Or I don't know. So I'm frightened, Jo, I'll be honest. I don't know what's coming. Aww. Maybe I'll just breeze through it. My mum breezed through it pretty well. Yeah. She was menopausal around my age. I'm 48, nearly 49. So I don't know. Who knows?
Well, that's one of my big areas that I'm focusing on now, and helping women going through the perimenopausal transition. And the mere fact that some women suffer terribly, around 20% of women will suffer terribly, around about 60% will have signs and symptoms of that can impact them, and 20% just breeze through. So there's just such a continuum on where you can be during this stage of life. But the important part is it's a natural phase of a woman's life, and it's one that you don't realize it's out there. Because for me, I thought hot flushes, period stops, that's it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So much more. And it's a shame that women don't have as much information as what they should have. So they're not frightened, they're not scared. They can just see, well, it is a normal part of our life. And if things are getting really bad, then what can you do? And for yourself, Kate, big claps, because you've looked at all of these different aspects of your wellness to improve your health. So it will help you with your transitioning time now and for the future.
Yeah. And I think, I hope so. But I think there's a big identity thing tied up in it as well. Like, women of a certain age, no one looks at you anymore. Your sexuality is gone. You're not a vital, vibrant, baby-producing female. So therefore, what value do you have to society? So I think it's really important that women of our vintage and older show up, do stuff. There's a lovely lady that I love following, who I've recommended to be on your podcast, Jules Brooke, who I love, and she's a little bit older than me, and I'm like, every time she does something, I'm like, brilliant, because if she's doing that, then that means I can. And it's like we don't become redundant as soon as we stop having periods. And I think that's a bit of society has told us that that we're not attractive anymore, that we don't have, if you're not attractive, you have no value. It's a really hard one. I think you spent your whole life trying to attract men, and now I couldn't give a damn. So it's like, who are you if you are not that person who you've been? It's funny,
it is funny, and it's changing the narrative of that, because you're saying you spend all that time attracting men. Well, now it's for doing things for ourselves, and that that is a big difference and a big mindset shift for a lot of women.
And also not being an active parent anymore. So, 5 years time-ish, my son will be off to university. I mean, obviously, I hope he comes back. But this phase of parenting is coming to a close.
Yeah.
And who am I if I'm not a parent? Because also the other thing I'm struggling with, Jo, is all the way up till now, life is a progression. You know, you go to university, you get your first job, you rent a flat, you find a partner, you get married, you have kids, you build, you know, all this stuff. And then it's like, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, pay your mortgage off, go on cruises. Like, what are we doing this bit? You know, what's next?
That's exactly right. Because you know what, Kate, the next question I had for you was around just this topic I had, that your son is no longer a little boy. So he's only got a few more years at home. He's not going to be needing you as much as he gets older and older, particularly because his friends will become key. Your beloved dog, and I love the name. I had to get it right though. Pomple for short, is also getting older. So how are you preparing that time for when they're not around? So you know it's happening. So are you doing anything?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, my son and my ex-partner went to the UK for 3 weeks, and it was the first time I'd ever been in the house on my own for more than a day. And it was a huge adventure of my emotions. And I came out the other side so much better, because I really enjoyed the solitude, you know, taking pride in things like the house being clean, being able to cook myself really nice meals, waking up and everything being exactly as it was. It made me make more of an effort to go out, to go to the gym, to make contact with friends. I feel like I really want to go back and study in that phase. I want to maybe go and do a master's in something. I want to write my book. I want to travel. You know, I say to my partner, oh my God, my son's not going to be around. My dog will be dead. What will I do? And he said, you'll be free. And if and I'm working really hard on my financial security. So I've got a financial planner now. I'm looking at my super. I'm really taking ownership of my finances, which I think women should do.
Yes.
And, you know, maybe I'll be one of those women, you know, who has really cool white bob. That's kind of something I'm aspiring to. Your hair's pretty cool, Jane. And has lunches. And, you know, I go past the little ceramics place in New Minor where I live, and there's women in there just making pots and just looking really happy. And I'm like, I want to make a pot. So I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm going to do my paint by numbers and plant some potatoes and all these things that I want to do now, that I'm like, I'm going to do them all. I think it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, it will be brilliant. And that's why I think don't be scared of this stage that you're going through now, because it's going to lead you to an even better stage further down the track.
That's what we need to hear.
We do need to hear. Absolutely, we need to hear. We need to see women doing it, because we can't be what we can't see. So the more of us that are out there doing it, the more it needs.
I like that. We can't be what we can't see. Hashtag. I love that, Jo. That's amazing.
I can't credit that as being entirely my own. It is well-known saying, but
I've never heard it. So
have you? All right. Well, I'll credit it for this podcast. So, you know, you and your partner Tony have discovered the joys of weekend getaways in an old van that you're doing up, as well as prioritizing that time together. So, how important is this for you, and why?
Yeah, I mean, he's at the same stage of life as me. He's got he's got older kids, but he's also got 2 younger kids from a second marriage, and then one of them slightly younger than Orion. So yeah, we don't get to see each other that much, so we have to really enjoy the time we have. We're not living together, and I honestly have no plans to ever live with him. He's really messy, Jo. I couldn't do it. And I just don't want to compromise again on that. Yeah. I'd rather we visit each other's spaces, but they're our own spaces. But the van is our mutual space. It's like a little mini home that we've created. And he did all the electrics, but I did all the renovation, which was a huge achievement, because I don't know how to put a new light bulb in, but I built cabinets and tables and beds and all
Look
sorts.
At you.
I know, Jo. It got to the point where I was like, maybe this could be a side hustle. Maybe I could renovate vans, but I've got to stop trying to turn everything I enjoy into something making money. So I'm like, no, it's something I enjoy. No, it's super important. I love, not more than anything else other than my dog and my son, I love waking up in a new place. And I'm not talking about Azerbaijan or Tokyo, even if it's just like whoop whoop and it's a slightly different Coles that I'm going to. I get a lot of pleasure out of that, going to their little local coffee shop, and you know, I love just new places and just pottering around. So the van gives us that, you know, it's super cheap, we can go anywhere, and then we can retreat to our little bubble in the van.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's and just looking at what you'll post from time to time, it looks like you're having an absolute ball at what you're doing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that whole thing of, you know, no disrespect to my first partner, who was lovely, but, you know, with my new partner, like it's so much more patience and forgiveness and awareness as well. And like, is he perfect? No, of course he's not, but nor am I. And he's really thoughtful, and does a lot of self-help stuff and listens to a lot of podcasts. And it's just a really great relationship, but one I couldn't have had 10 years ago. I wasn't emotionally mature enough to have it. Because I might not be able to use the D word on your pod, but sometimes you look at situations and it's like, who's the dick in this relationship? And I look back at many situations like, oh my God, I was the dick. It was me. And and a big part of getting older is being able to go, yeah, it's you actually who's the problem. You can blame everybody else, but maybe you need to look at yourself a little bit more. And I am able to do that now, which is a lot better.
A lot better. And that's not an easy thing to do, because sometimes you don't like what's reflecting back at you.
Exactly.
So, Kate, you are incredibly creative, and you've spoken about a book that you're wanting to write as well. And your business reflects that beautifully. So what is next on the cards?
For me, it's keeping on. I don't necessarily want to make anything dramatic or new, maybe there's a few little courses I might pop in here or there. I'm really moving away from public speaking, which was a big thing for me, because I just like being at home. I know, isn't that shocking to admit? Are we allowed to say that?
Oh, yeah. Dirty words. They're the dirty words we can say now.
Yeah, we can definitely say that. I was just mentioning to you that I've actually planned out my entire year down to every coaching call, every masterclass, every time for podcasts, so that I can see the gaps. So for the next year, yes, I want to write the book, but I'm not going to make that some kind of stick to beat myself with. I just want to have a nice life. Like, my life is pretty groundhoggy. The day runs pretty much the same every day. And I used to find that so suffocating. And now I think it's delicious. I worry that I'm going to get a bit small-minded. You know how some old people are like, oh, I can't sit on that bench because that's not my bench. I always sit on this bench, Maureen. I don't want to be like that. But I can see why people get like that, because there is such a comfort in the familiar. And while I do believe good things happen outside your comfort zone, I think some amazing things can happen in your comfort zone. And we shouldn't deny that. Being comfortable is not bad. Yeah, we don't always have to be hustling and pushing and dreaming big. I want to dream medium. Thank you very much. I just want to be happy and enjoy my day as best I can.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I usually have to wind up, Kate, is what sort of life advice would you have for the 40-plus woman? Is that the advice that you would give?
I think, yeah, I mean, and it's advice that probably no one would be willing to take because I'm terrible at taking advice. Yeah, I think it's stop comparing yourself to other people at different life stages, and it's appreciate the little things. It sounds so cliche. And, if someone had said that to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, but yeah, just appreciate, as I said, good things happen in your comfort zone. That would be my advice. Don't always need to be pushing and hustling. Now and again, like right now, I'm pitching my book out. It's very uncomfortable. I'm not enjoying it. I don't like rejection, but I'm doing it. I'm being brave and doing it. But I wouldn't put myself through that every month. What's the point? Who am I trying to impress? Who cares? No one cares. So just, not necessarily feeling I have to keep achieving for some unknown reason. Giving myself a break. Yeah.
Wise advice, Kate. And how could people, if those who are listening would like to contact you or find out more about you and what you do, how can they find Kate Toon?
Well, luckily, I used to be quite good at SEO. So if you type Kate Toon into Google, you'll find something. I'm Kate Toon on Instagram and Kate Toon on LinkedIn and everywhere else. And I do love a chat. You're more than welcome to slide into my DMs. And I don't have a team of minions doing my socials and all that stuff. It's all me. So you will get me if you want to say hi. As I did, I slid into Jo's DMs and forced her to let me be on her podcast. So, yeah.
And I'm so very thankful that you did, because I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat and getting to know you better. It's been brilliant. So, Kate, my final question for you before we wrap up is, if you could look into the future, what do you hope that 80-year-old Kate will say about current day Kate?
Oh, what a question.
Oh.
Gosh, I don't know the answers to that. I think that she was a good mum, that she was a good friend. She did her best. I think that would be it, really. And she had a nice bottom. I've got quite a nice bottom at the moment. I've worked really hard on it. And it's that whole thing of like, you whinge about yourself when you're 20, and then you look at yourself when at 30 at 20 and go, oh my God, I was great. So I think that's what I'll say. Nice mum, nice friend, nice partner, pretty kind to people, pretty generous, and she had a nice bottom.
Oh, I love that. I love that you finished on she had a nice bottom. Well, let's hope 80-year-old Kate still has got a fairly tight tush, so she'll be saying the same thing as well.
Hooray!
We can't be what we can't see, Kate, so let's see. You work those glute and that gym.
I will. I'll see my bum in the mirror. Jo, this has been lovely. You're lovely. Can I just say that? You're lovely.
You,
I feel like I've had a warm hug and a bowl of porridge. Thank you, Jo.
Oh, and thank you for your time, Kate. Absolutely enjoyed it. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today. I had such a fun time chatting to Kate, and I really hope you enjoyed listening to her midlife journey as much as I did. I'm going to be taking a short 2-week break, but I'll be back early in the new year. So please make sure you take this opportunity to catch up with the other fabulous episodes that you might have missed. In the meantime, I'd love you to hit subscribe wherever you listen and leave a 5-star rating and review. To keep spreading these empowering messages, please share this podcast with other incredible midlife women in your world. On socials, you can find me on Instagram and Pinterest at Jo Clark Coaching. I'd also like to invite you to join my private Facebook group, Women's Wellness Collective. You can also head to my website at joclarkcoaching.com for more information. All the links that I've mentioned in today's episode can be found in the show notes. I'd love to wish you and your loved ones a very happy and safe festive season. Thanks again for tuning in.